How's it going? Today I'm not playing Gwent. I'm going to be taking a look at card advantage, passing, and the hand size limit in Gwent Homecoming. So to do that, I've prepared this little simulator here, just excuse how ugly this is. It's just a little quick little web form here that I made up just so we can simulate playing cards in Gwent, passing, going on into round two, drawing cards as we do at the end of each round. It's basically a simulator of the Gwent round system without actually simulating Gwent cards. And the reason that I did this is so that we can have a look at how card advantage has changed and how passing has changed in Gwent Homecoming. 6 days. 6 days until launch. So we obviously all got to play in the beta a couple of weeks ago, and I think a lot of people were just completely shocked at how different the game was, because everyone was talking about the two rows, the two copies of every bronze, the fact that every card has changed. A lot of things have changed, but I think the thing that really took everyone by surprise was the hand size limit. The fact that when you draw, if you already have 10 cards in hand and you draw a card, you burn that card. So this completely changes the way that passing works in Gwent, which is the core mechanic of Gwent. And I think a lot of people really didn't understand what was going on. I certainly didn't. You had situations where you're ahead by 2 cards and you pass. Sorry, you're ahead and your opponent needs to play 2 cards to catch up, and they do, but then because of the hand size limit, they can get back to even card advantage. And we had a lot of people saying, round 1 and 2 doesn't matter anymore because it all ends up being the same anyway. And I think this is all just not really understanding the new mechanics. So what I wanted to do is I put together the simulator so that we can have a look at some of the situations. So I'm just going to take some time to set aside some rules, and then we're going to just experience in a really quick way by just pressing these buttons how passing works in Gwent Homecoming. So to start off with, I want to just establish some new terminology here. So 2 new terms, burn and dump. So a burn is what happens when you draw a card when your hand is already full. You burn that card. We've seen this mechanism in Hearthstone. In Magic the Gathering is a little bit like this, but you get to choose what to discard. In Hearthstone, if your hand is full and you draw a card, it just burns up into nothing. And in Hearthstone, that's fine because you can play as many cards as you want. It only happens in extreme situations. But in Gwent, because you can only play 1 card every turn, you can get a burn pretty easily if you pass too early. A dump is what I'm calling it when you play a card that you don't need to play, but you play it anyway. But it doesn't affect card advantage because of the fact that everyone's going to draw up. So I'll give a quick example using this simulator, right? So let's say that we, classic mistake of Gwent Homecoming. I'm just going to dry pass as the blue coin player, right? Blue is the player that goes first. If you're not familiar with that, if you maybe, because there's no red and blue coin anymore in Homecoming if you haven't played Gwent before Homecoming, but the blue player is the player who goes first. I should say as well, this is all subject to change. This is based on the Gwent Homecoming PTR that we got to play 2 weeks before launch, and this could all be different, so bear that in mind. So blue player passes. Now, the red player, if the red player plays a card, this is normal Gwent, plays a card to be winning. I'm just going to use this checkbox to indicate who's winning the round at any given time. So the red player plays a card to win the round and then passes. This is normal Gwent, right? So red player wins the round down a card. So in classical Gwent, win a round down a card, you go into round 2 with control of the round, but you're always down a card, and you're going to have to try to make up that card advantage by passing ahead. Not the case in Homecoming, because you saw what happened here. The red player drew another card and burned 2 cards, while the blue player burned 3 cards. I wish I was actually showing the number of cards burned here, but oh well. So this is actually a disaster for blue player because we're on even card advantage again. So red player is massively winning this game, right? I'll show you a bit of a different situation though. Let's say blue player dry passes again. Red player plays a card, is winning. Now, the blue player is at a disadvantage here because 3 cards are going to get burned, but red player is also going to experience 2 cards getting burned. Instead of burning those cards, red player can choose to dump those cards. Play another card. Play another card. Now, red is at -3 card advantage, which seems really bad. But you pass, and you draw 3 cards. And it's back to even again. So, blue screwed up by dry passing. You can't dry pass anymore in Homecoming. But in this second situation, what blue did was actually even better. Because by dumping those 2 cards instead of burning, you often get a choice between dumping and burning. By dumping those 2 cards, you get to choose which cards to play out of your hand instead of just burning a random card. And you get to play for carryover. So I'll just quickly do that again. I might be playing this card to win, but the second card that I play could be Morkvarg. So it's just a 5-point card, but it sets up carryover for the next round. Or it could be another card. Could be a card that boosts a card in my hand. So by dumping cards instead of burning, not only do I get to choose which cards, but I get to establish carryover. So dumping is very, very powerful. It's something that we're used to. If your opponent dry passes on you in classic Gwent, you get to dump 1 card. But in this case, you can dump many cards in a row. And without any penalty because of this hand size limit, because you're going to draw back up to 10 and your opponent is going to burn those cards. So now that we've kind of established that framework, let's have a look at some specific examples. And basically what I've just been doing here as blue is totally wrong. You cannot dry pass. You can't pass when you have 10 cards in hand because you just burn 3 cards. But so what should you do? So the basic strategy for round 1 is you pretty much need to play down to 4 cards. And I think we've kind of learned that pretty quickly in the Homecoming PTR. You should play down to 4 cards and then we're back to normal Gwent. Why can't you just stop at 7? Let's say we do play, 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 play. And let's say that blue player is winning at this point, which is quite likely because of the new tactical advantage as well. So blue player is winning on 7. Let's say blue player is winning by a whole lot, by so much so that the red player will actually have to play 2 more cards to catch up. So I think this is a pretty safe pass, right? Pass. And now red player has to play 2 cards to catch up. Play, and play again, and now red player is winning, and now red can pass. So pretty good for blue, right? Because blue player is now up. So no cards were burned. Blue player is up 2 cards. We both drew 3, 10 cards and 8 cards. But the problem is now red player is in control of the round. And red player can dry pass, just as we've seen in classical Gwent, except that now, by dry passing, let's say that I pass right here. In fact, I'm not even going to dry pass. Red player gets to dump 1 more card because you don't pass when you got more than 7 cards, right? So red is going to play a card down to 7. Now blue player has to play. And let's say red's not even winning. Let's say that blue player was able to catch up just now. Red player can safely pass here. In classical Gwent, this would be an easy pass for blue. You pass, you go into round 3 with 2 card advantage, right? But if you do that here, red's going to draw up to 10. You're going to draw up to 10 and then burn 2. And you go into round 3 on even. So what blue player actually has to do here is dump 2 cards. And as we've discussed, dumping is a good thing. It helps you establish carryover and it lets you mulligan. Essentially, it's a pseudo mulligan. Mulligan out cards that you don't want in your hand. But is it worth that card advantage? So if we don't dump 2, we're going to burn 2. So blue player dumps again, and finally can pass. And we go into round 3 on even card advantage. So what you can see is that winning the round 2 cards up, or winning the round, forcing your opponent to play 2 more cards, it doesn't necessarily give you that same lead in the game as it used to do. And I think that's why a lot of people are saying, oh, round 1 and 2 don't matter anymore. But of course, let's just reset that. That's just because I passed at 7. So now let's go and play cards all the way down to 4 cards. And let's say that now blue player is winning with a hand size of 4 and winning by a significant margin. So now blue player passes, red player has that tough decision of do I just concede or do I play 2 cards to catch up? Let's play 2 cards to catch up here. And now we're winning and we pass. So what we've hit here is a totally normal classical Gwent situation. Because we got down to 4 cards, and we're going to draw 6 more cards for the rest of the game, we're not going to hit the hand size limit. So here we go into round 2, 5 cards to 7. Blue player has control of the round, but if they want to get the card advantage back, they have to get significantly far ahead. Let's say blue player can't do that. You just dry pass. Red player just dry passes. Blue player chooses to play 1 card to take round 2, and now we go into round 3, 8 cards to 9. So we're back to we're still in a classical Gwent situation there, where red player wins the first round up 2 cards. We go into round 3 we go into round 3 with blue player being up by 1 card, because you're always expected to get a card back in round 2. Okay, so what we're kind of seeing here is passing with 10, 9, or 8 cards in hand is pretty much always bad. I've got some notes here, so I'll just quickly have a look. You pretty much never should do that, because your opponent can just play down to 7 cards to catch up, even at 8. Let's do 8, right? Blue player is ahead at 8, pass. Red player can easily play down to 7, and there's no disadvantage there. Even if it takes you another card, even if you're 2 cards ahead, and play down to 6, you're still only 1 card down. So even if the red player chooses to play deep into round 2, they can still recover that card advantage if they can stay ahead. So even passing at 8 is not a great strategy, as we've seen. So going down to 7, passing from 7 or from 6, it has that problem that I showed earlier. It's okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing. What it does is it basically guarantees that your opponent is going to win. So if you want to win round 1, you shouldn't pass with 7 or 6 cards in hand. Even if I pass here, even if red player has to play 3 cards and go down to 4 to win the round, that's still beneficial for them, because now they can dry pass. And you have to play 3 cards. But as you can see there, if you can do that, you can that can work, because you got 3 free dumps basically. You could play 3 carryover cards. So that's okay for you, but it doesn't give you card advantage. But the thing that it does do is it sort of acts like carryover. And that might seem a little strange to say that, because it doesn't actually put points on the board in round 2. But what it does is it stops them from dry passing. So I would recommend playing, let's say that red's winning at this point, right? I wouldn't really recommend passing here if you're ahead, if you're blue player. But if you're so far behind, say that you're blue player and you're just 20 points behind, because red had this massive tempo swing, right? And you're never going to be able to catch up. If you keep playing into this round, you're going to lose on even. At some point, you're going to have to pass, right? If you pass here, then red obviously passes right away. And we go into round 2 on even cards, which we've said is a foregone conclusion, right? You're going to go into round 2 on even cards no matter what, no matter how deep you play into that round. By getting out early, it forces the red player to not dry pass. So remember that meta about 6 months ago when everyone was playing War Dancer, which is just a 3-point carryover in round 2 that you can't stop? The reason everyone was playing War Dancer is because it stops the dry pass. Because if you lose round 1, you go into round 2 with War Dancer on the board, and your opponent can easily overpower it, but they have to play a card, and then you can get ahead of them, and they have to play, and you can get ahead of them again. And if you can stay ahead, then they can't gain that card advantage over you. That's what happens here, because red player won the round, but they cannot dry pass, because otherwise it'll just burn. It'll burn their hand, right? So they have to play. Blue plays, play. Blue plays, play. Blue plays, and now we can think about passing. And you can see red player is ahead here. So, hang on, have I done this completely wrong? Let me just reset this. Hang on. What I'm trying to show is, this is if blue player passes. Sorry, blue player is behind here, so they pass and red player passes, right? So this is a strategy that blue player employs. You force red player to play into this round. And if they want to win a card advantage, let's say that blue is able to get ahead in round 2. So you were massively behind, you lost a huge amount of tempo in round 1, but you still have some good stuff in your hand, so you can stay ahead in round 2. So we get down to 7 cards, and blue player is winning at this point. Okay, red player can pass, but we'll go into round 3 on even. They didn't capitalize on the fact that they won the first round on even, because if you win the first round on even, you're expected to go to round 3 up a card, right? This prevents them from capitalizing on that. So they play again, and then blue plays again, and blue's still winning. Same situation. Play again, blue plays again. If they ever get ahead, they can pass, and then blue has to go down a card. But if blue can stay ahead throughout round 2, then you can block them from getting that card, which they could have gotten if they dry passed. So that's basically a strategy of why you would want to pass when losing on 7 or 6 hands, 7 or 6 cards in hand. It's probably not a good thing to do when you're winning, because you can't really take advantage of the fact that you're winning round 1. But it's something you might do out of desperation if you're losing. This advice might be wrong. I haven't got a lot of experience with the actual game of Homecoming, but this is just thinking about the hand sizes and the card advantage. I should also say that card advantage seems to not be as important in Homecoming as it is in regular Gwent, because the cards have such different strength totals because of the provision system. Hand quality is more important. It can be more important than card advantage, and that's something that thinking about the dumping really helps with, because dumping is kind of like a mulligan. You can improve the quality of your hand that way. The last thing I want to talk about is kind of the most interesting situation, which is 5 cards in hand. 5 cards in hand, let's get down to 5. 5 cards in hand is kind of the interesting threshold where you might consider passing. We saw before that if you go down to 4 or less, it's just the same as classical Gwent. If you are above 5, then it's not great to pass, especially not if you're winning. You can't push an advantage. But if you're at 5, then that's where things are very much on the fence. Let's say that the blue player passes here. I think we'll be winning. Yeah, blue player passes here on 5 cards. Right? And now the red player has to play 1 card to catch up. So here, because we draw 6 cards, you would think that passing at 5 cards means you're going to burn 1. But of course, by losing round 1, the blue player, by losing round 1, you are guaranteed to have to play another card in round 2, unless you had carryover, but then you wouldn't do this. So let's say red player just dry passes here. Blue player is forced to play a card. That's absolutely normal. That's expected. And pass. And we didn't burn any cards, right? So what I just played out there is a pretty normal classical Gwent situation. So what I'm trying to show is that passing on 5, I'll just do this again. passing when you have 5 cards in hand is pretty close to what we're used to in normal Gwent. So you don't have to wait till you get down to 4. You can pass at 5. But word of warning is that you can't do this if you're trying to bully them out of 2 cards, right? You have to wait until 4. Let's say that blue player is, again, so far ahead that the opponent has to play 2 cards. So we pass, the opponent plays, and then plays again to win. Now red player is down 2, so we pass. And now the red player dry passes. And I have to play... Hang on, what happened there? Let me just check my notes. Sorry, yeah. If you played it like this, then you will actually go into round 3 a card up. So this is tricky. I'll come down to 5 again. Let's say that red player is so far ahead in round 1, and they pass with 5 cards in hand. What the red player's strategy is to do is to just pass here and go into round 2, letting them win, but on even cards. And now the blue player, once again, is not able to dry pass. So it's similar to the situation I showed earlier. You can't just dry pass here because you have to play a card or you're going to burn it. If you do dry pass, then your opponent will just dump 1 card and equalize. So we have to dump a card here. And now, if the red player is able to catch up, let's say they can catch up in 1 card, well, now blue player doesn't have a pass where they can take card advantage. Play again, still hasn't caught up. If blue player ever catches up, let's say that red player isn't able to catch back up, now blue player has a pass where they can take card advantage into round 3. Okay, but let's just do that situation again. So what I'm saying here is if blue player passes here and the red player isn't able to take it in 1 card and they pass, well, at this point, play and play to win. At this point, we're in a situation where blue has to get ahead to find that card. So red player will go, they could go down a card, but it's not guaranteed, which is different to if we were on 4. Because this is a classical Gwent situation. If I pass and you can't catch up and you pass, well, now I just dry pass. End of story. So the difference between passing with 5 cards in hand and passing with 4 is that when you go into round 2, you can't dry pass. Otherwise, it's the same as classical Gwent. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are the red player, or if you're the player who's being forced out of the round. When you see the opponent pass with 4 or less cards in hand, you might decide, as we normally do in current Gwent, to go down 2 cards and take the round down 2 cards and hope that you can use that advantage later. But if you see them pass with 5 cards and you can't catch up in 1, just go ahead and pass, and then try to stay ahead in round 2. So the dynamic of the game changes a lot. I think that when I first saw this mechanism of the burn when you hit 10 cards, I was really confused and opposed to this. It was like, this isn't how Gwent works. This means that I can't dry pass and I can't do all these things. But everything that I've just said is a huge amount of complexity that the community is going to have to understand and kind of build into the language of how we play Gwent. And I think it's really cool. There's a lot of interesting mechanics. Just everything I just talked about is extra depth and complexity to the game. There's questions in here that I haven't addressed, like when is it better to burn cards versus dumping them? Maybe you have everything you need in your hand and you're playing Skellige discard and you're happy to dump a few cards. But normally you're just going to want to set up to dump these cards. Is it okay to continue playing, like if your opponent passes on 5, there's a question there of whether you should take the round on 2 cards or or just concede and hope that you can stay ahead in round 2. And that question has become more interesting as of Homecoming. So I'm really looking forward to playing with this system. I think that they could probably change it to draw less. Drawing 3 cards isn't really necessary. All of this complexity still happens if you would draw 2 cards between each round, except that instead of being 5 being the critical point, it would be 7. I think that would be better to keep the rounds variable length. At the moment, round 1 kind of has to be long. It has to usually go more than 6 cards. And round 3 also has to be really long, because normally it's going to be anywhere from 3 to 6 cards and maybe even up to 10 cards. You don't get those intensely variable rounds that we have in current Gwent, where you can have really short round 1s, really long round 1s. You can have an immediately go into round 3 and have 13 cards round 3, or you can have a round 3 where it's just like both players saved up that one last card and then they draw another card, so it's just 4 turns in round 3. You don't really get that in Homecoming just because there's just so many cards being drawn. So I think they could reduce the number of cards drawn, but the hand size limit, I'm okay with this, and I think it'll be really interesting for the game. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in Homecoming in 6 days.